We'll start by downloading PTV VISSIM. So go ahead and type into Google PTV VISSIM student version. Hit the top link. Scroll down and start entering your details. First, you'll pick the trial version you want. That's PTV VISSIM, not VISSIM. Then you'll enter your university and your email address. And scroll down and hit submit. On the next page, you'll be given a link to the download. Hit that and let the program finish downloading. Once the download is complete in Chrome, you can go ahead and open the exe file for the setup. Hit yes. OK. I accept. I have read. Pick the location where you want to install it. Hit next. Go ahead and hit next again. Alright, that's all fine. Select install and let the trial version install itself. The installation takes some time, but once it's completed, you can go ahead and hit finish, and on your desktop you will have the link to the program. So in this part, we'll have a look at the different things you can see on the screen, the different parts of the program. But before that, I just wanted to mention that during the installation, try not to change any of the default settings. If you do, you may run into some problems regarding code meter and the program licenses. So try not to change anything there. So moving on to the program we have in front of us, we can go ahead and open a new project in the top left corner over there. And by default, the first thing you see is a map of the world. So what this map is used for is we will build our roads laid on top of an aerial view of the world. This will help us get the right angles, get the right curves without actually having to calculate or measure these things from the field. And on top of that, the map given in the program is already scaled perfectly, which means you don't need to upload your own backgrounds to the project. It makes things much simpler. On the left-hand side, you can see network objects. Now, what these network objects are the things that our road network, our system, will be built from. Links are going to be the base of everything, obviously. They're going to be the main roads that we have everywhere. On top of that, what we will be using are vehicle inputs, nodes, and possibly data collection points, depending on what we're doing later on. So on top of network objects, the other part that we'll be using are called lists. So in lists, you can open up anything that you've seen in network objects, for example, vehicle inputs, and you can define their attributes down here. We'll go further into detail as we go one by one into the network objects. For now, that's about it that you need to know in terms of the different panels you have. For moving around on the screen, if you're using a mouse, you can just press the middle button and that'll grab and hold the screen and you can pan around really easily. If you're not using a mouse and instead you're using a touchpad, for example, you can go up here and select shift mode. That'll allow us to do the exact same thing, easily panning around the screen. On top of that, you can change the view to 2D and 3D. You can rotate the view once you're in 3D view. Over here, you can change the type of map that you want. Now, for the actual drawing, we'll use aerial maps because that makes things much easier. But you may want to have a look at this partway through your project for whatever reason, so you can have a wireframe map as well. Besides that, you can change in network objects, you can change the various looks of the different objects, but we won't be dealing with that much because the defaults are perfectly fine. And up here, up top, you can see the play button for the simulation. You can see the different timings for the simulation. You can see simulation step by step. We'll go into all of these in detail, but it's good to know where they are for now. That's about all we need to know for now. In our next section, we'll be looking at how to actually draw the roads using links, and beyond that, how to add vehicle inputs and eventually be able to measure the level of service of the road. So in this next part, we're going to have a look at how exactly to build our roads using links. So because we want a single uninterrupted stretch of highway, I'm going to be starting from this point on the highway, going along and finishing off over here. So we will begin by zooming in on the end of the highway that we want to build. We're going to pick links from the table of network objects. You're going to right click on the center lane of the road and drag it in the direction of movement. So you just do that, you let go, and automatically this window will pop up where now you define the name of the road. So we'll take this as road number 1. We'll enter the name as west, east, and you're going to increase the number of lanes to 4. Now, because we have 3 main lanes and 1 shoulder lane. Now, the lane indices will count from the outermost lane to the innermost lane, meaning lane index 1 is going to be our shoulder lane. So we can go ahead and block all of the vehicles from entering the shoulder lane, because that will not be part of our simulation, and you can change it to obstacle, for example. So we'll put no lane changes, and that'll have blocked our shoulder lane from being used at all. Now, in the case of widths, you can measure these from Google Earth. I measured mine to be 3.5 meters for each road lane, and for the shoulder lane, it was only 3.2 meters. So you can enter that over there and go ahead and hit OK. Now, automatically, your road is there 4 lanes, with the shoulder lane being a little bit smaller. And what we'll do now is we'll zoom out, you'll click on the road, and you'll drag one end all the way to the end of where you need your road to reach. Now, if you look, the alignment is not exactly correct. So what we do is you'll right click, you'll click on the road first, you'll right click on points on the road to add bending points. So now using these points, we can just shift the road and align it perfectly. Just drag and hold and realign your road. Now we have one side of the road moving from west to east. We can just click on the road, hold down Control and right click, and go down the list, generate opposite direction. Now we have 4 lanes in the opposite direction as well, so that's perfectly fine. You just hit OK, and we have our opposite road. But we have not included a median, so you'll just drag this to realign it with the opposite side of the road, exactly where it's supposed to go. You can zoom in to make sure it's proper on both sides. It seems fine. The only thing left to do is to rename the other side of the road. So you're going to double click the link to again change its properties. You're going to go ahead and name it East West. And there we have our links. Here you can see the number of lanes, the name, the width, the blocked vehicles, the display type have all been changed as we did earlier. And on the second screenshot, you can see that the name has been changed. I will be changing my screen recorder to allow you guys to see the windows and the menus. In the next part, we will move on to adding vehicle inputs and vehicle compositions. So in this section, we're going to try getting vehicles to start driving along our roads for the simulation. So the first step in doing that is we need to first define the vehicle compositions. This means that what percentage of heavy vehicles, what percentage of buses, what percentage of cars will be driving along the roads. So to do that, you can go up to Lists, Private Transport, Vehicle Compositions. You'll get this pop-up down here in the under Lists, and the original one is called Default. You already have one set up over there, but we can make a new one and we can call it our highway. Now, what we'll do here is we already have cars on this side. We can add two more. One of them can be heavy goods vehicles and the other one can be buses. They'll turn up by default because it's 1, 2, and 3. Now, you need to then define the speed distribution. This comes from what the values are you measured on the road when you went in person. So let's say, for example, cars, I know the speed limit on this road is around 120 kilometers. So let's say cars are moving at an average speed of 100 kilometers per hour, with heavy goods vehicles moving at an average speed of 80 kilometers per hour and buses moving at an average speed of 85 kilometers per hour. Now, along with the speeds, you also need to define the relative flows. This means the number or the relative number of that sort of vehicle that are going to be input onto your road. So we'll start with cars. For example, from the road, you'll have taken the data of the number of heavy goods vehicles compared to the number of cars. So you'll have a certain percentage of heavy goods vehicles, a certain percentage of buses, or they can be combined. That's also fine because I think that's the data you'll be taking from the road. And you'll have a percentage of cars. So let's say that the percentage of heavy vehicles in total is 0.2. So you can divide that equally among heavy goods vehicles as 0.1 and 0.1. And the rest of the 0.8, which is 80% of the vehicles, are going to be cars. So that's done. We now have our highway as the vehicle composition, and we have exactly the speed and the relative flows of the different types of vehicles. So we can now move on to the next part, which is actually placing the vehicle inputs on the highway. So you'll go and select vehicle inputs from network objects, and you just have to right click on one side of the highway and right click on the other side of the highway. Both vehicle inputs will turn up automatically. The only thing left for you to do now is to go down here and change it to our highway, our highway. Along with that, you also now need to define the volume, because earlier all we defined were the relative volumes. So now we need to define the total volume. Now the total volume is another set of data that you're going to be taking from the road. If you hover over volume, you can see that it says number of vehicles per hour and not per time interval. That means that the data that you enter here needs to be the vehicles per hour, which is what we call the flow, or the rate of flow. So over here we can, for example, if the rate of flow on the west to east side of the highway was 1,000 cars per hour, 1,000 vehicles per hour, and the relative flow on the east to west side was 1,200 vehicles per hour. Now, if you go ahead and hit play on the simulation, hit save changes, you can see that vehicles have started moving along our road. Now, this simulation is obviously extremely sped up, so it's at a very high rate. Later on, we can look at how to change that to actually get a live simulation. Now we'll have a look at the different simulation parameters and how to change those and how to view the simulation in 3D and 2D. And then after that, we'll go on to using nodes and data collection points to actually determine the level of service, the speed of vehicles, to count the vehicles. All the data that you can actually take physically from the highway, we can now take from the simulation that we've made. So to run the simulation, you go up to the play button in the top bar up there. You hit play and you can see the simulation running. Obviously, the simulation is sped up, so if you want to change certain parameters for the simulation, you can just hit stop, go up to simulation, hit parameters, and you can change the period of the simulation. So this is a 6-minute simulation, which is perfectly fine. You can change the resolution of the simulation. So if you want a higher resolution, you're going to hit more time steps per simulation second. You can change the seed if you want to play around with several different seeds with each different simulation just to get better values from the simulation. You can also, one thing, if we want to make the simulation real-time 1-to-1, you can just go hit, instead of maximum, you can hit factor, and the number 1 is fine over there. So then you just go hit OK, hit play on the simulation, say yes to save the changes, and now you can see the cars are moving at real-time speed. Now this is not really useful in the case of actually getting data because you don't want to sit here for 6 minutes waiting, but if you want to view the road, if you want to create a recording to enter into your presentation, that sort of thing, you can move into 3D view, you can pan around, you can have a look at the cars. So this is really good for the actual presentation part of it because it looks nice. That's about it. So then if you want to quickly end the simulation, you can hit this button over here called Quick Mode. It'll finish off the simulation, and any data collection points that we've created later will show the data immediately instead of having to wait through the entire simulation. So now let's actually have a look at how to do this whole data collection thing. So the two types of data collection we're going to be using are nodes and data collection points. So first, let's have a look at data collection points themselves. So you just go in Network Objects, click on Data Collection Points, zoom into somewhere in the middle of the road, and just right-click. The moment you right-click, you get the data collection points lists, but you can just add the rest of them at the same time. So 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. All right, so now we have 6 different data collection points in our lists down here. You can see them right there. Now these will not collect any data until you go to Evaluation, Configuration, go to Data Collections, and hit Collect Data. Now we'll also be using nodes later, so you can do the same thing for nodes so that the road, basically the simulation, will be taking data for both nodes and data collection points. So you can hit OK. Let's also create our nodes. So what we do is you zoom out all the way, you click on nodes, you start by right-clicking and just moving along the edge of the highway. It'll create a sort of cordon, which you can take all the way around the highway. Doesn't matter, just the beginning and end are the parts that actually matter. So there, and you regular click the final point to complete the node. So let's call that LOS because the node is what's going to actually give us the level of service. And you can hit OK. Now, to view results that you're getting from the highway, you can go to Lists, Results, Data Collection Results. You can also go again, Lists, Results, Node Results. So now we're going to be getting results for our data collection points and for our node. All right, so you can just then hit play on the simulation. This is in fast mode, so it's completing the simulation down here, and then you can have a look at. Now, data collection results, you'll notice that they've not appeared yet, but node results, we have them. So data collection results actually need one more step in between, in which you go to Lists, and then you go to Measurements, Data Collection Measurements. You hit the add symbol. So we have 6 different lanes that we're doing it for, so you can do it, you can give a separate data collection point for each one because we have all the separate data collection points. 5 and 6. And now if you go to, sorry, let's open that again. Results, data collection results. Put that back in there. Oops. Put that back in there. And now you can hit play on the simulation, and you'll see that we're getting, as the simulation proceeds, we're getting data in here. So you can see the number of vehicles. It's one person per vehicle, so you won't see much there, but you'll see the average speed, and you'll see the occupation rate of the highway, but that's fine. That's less important. The one that we're actually interested in are these node results. And in the node results, you see for each simulation run, you have the same level of service. So this is the level of service for the west to east part of the highway. This is the level of service for the east to west part of the highway. And you can directly take this level of service and enter it into your assignment, because that's all you need. Now, if you want to play around a bit and you want to test the volumes, for example, at which the level of service will change, you can go back to private transport inputs. You can change the volume, and as you change the volume to, for example, 7,000 vehicles per hour and 6,000 vehicles per hour, and you go again, hit play on the simulation, hit yes to save changes, and you'll see when our node results turn up for the 23rd simulation, just wait for it to complete. All right, the level of service is still A, but the vehicle delay, the delay per person, obviously the emissions have gone up, the number of vehicles have gone up. So again, if we put it up to, for example, 8,000 and 8,500 vehicles per hour, and you hit play on the simulations, then we'll look at our node results for simulation run number 24 now. You can wait for them to turn up. See, the level of service has already fallen as the simulation is proceeding. And now you can see that our level of service has fallen to level of service C and level of service B for the west to east and east to west highways. You can also see that there is some amount of stoppage on the road. So such things, and you can just look through, keep changing the values, whatever values you need to input from the road, you put them there, and you can have a look at the level of service that's turning up. Same thing for the data collection results. You can